Okay, Adrian, to say, hey, we're going to start. Well, shall we start with a prayer? Our Father in heaven, I thank you for another beautiful day. I thank you for another day of life and the fact that we have peace and safety and happiness and joy is all a gift from you. And we're very thankful for what you give us. And it's also, we understand now, is it costing you dearly to give us this peace. And we just pray that you would be with us here as we speak about experiences, and that you'll give me the words to speak, that you'll show me what I need to be sharing, and so that you are glorified. And we thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Well, last time I had a little bit of a testimony. I spoke a little bit more in general terms because Daniel was in the audience. And so Adrian has taken him for a little wander, so I can speak a little bit more freely about what really goes on. But the other thing I also wanted to say that I didn't get to say in my last little testimony was that, because I know Carl had asked a question about what we do when we need a break, with respite and all that. And, many times we haven't had respite, and it's come to the point over the last few years that for me to get a break, I need to go away from everybody, just have a complete break by myself, or just go visit my mum. That's what I have been doing the last few years. And the thing is, Adrian just takes over and does everything that most things that I do for Daniel in the home, as well as talk to people and write and whatever. And so I'm very thankful that he can just take over where I leave off. When I'm not there, he can do everything I can do for Daniel. And I really appreciate that. And the other point was, because last time I shared more about my experience coming into all the new truths that we've been learning, and I have also really appreciated how he has never mandated, dictated, well, this is what we believe. He's always just let me, he's following his convictions, but he's let me come along at my own pace and come to my own conclusions and join when I'm ready. So that's been a real blessing. And I guess I thought an analogy like that was remember when Jacob was coming back with his whole family to meet Esau, and Esau said, come on, we'll look after you, let's go, after they had made up. And Jacob said, no, I will come at the pace of the women and the children. And so I guess he hasn't said, come on, we're doing this. He just let me come along at my own pace with all the new truths, and I appreciate that. So so this testimony, I spoke last time that I'm on my dad's side. I'm a 5th generation Seventh-day Adventist, dating back to the very early church in Australia and New Zealand. And on my mum's side, I'm a 3rd generation Seventh-day Adventist, been through all the Adventist schools and all that. And so, like Carolyn was saying in her testimony, sometimes when you've been brought up in the church and you've wanted to be a good girl, you've wanted to do the right thing, and you haven't wanted to rebel and all that, you get this impression that you don't have a testimony, because all the testimonies that you hear are all people who've been into drugs and alcohol and wine, women and song, and have made a dramatic change, and now I'm with Christ. And so you kind of grow up thinking, don't really have much to say. What would I say is a testimony? But I guess as you come to realise that even when you are a good girl, we really are in a performance mode. We really haven't known Christ. We've known all the truths, we've known about everything. But the testimony really, and even those testimonies that are dramatic rescues out of the world, brand plucked out of the fire, they could still really only know about Christ. But really what matters for everybody is knowing Christ and having a personal interaction with him on a daily basis. And I guess that's where, particularly for me, my testimony is really largely to do with the struggles that we've had, particularly with Daniel. And I could only generalise last time, but Adrian's taken him, so I can speak more freely. I mean, I mentioned last time that I grew up, we all grew up in a performance mode, whether we're in the church, whether we're in the world, whatever. Everything is about performing, having an image, having what other people think of you, comparing yourself with others and all that. And it's hard for us to come to live in the relational kingdom. So we're all a work in progress. And I also believe that God prepares us for our life work. And so whatever I've been through as a child even, as he had been preparing me to be dealing with what we're dealing with now, with worldwide ministry with Adrian and with our special needs child. There was a text that I glanced across at, and somewhere we were looking at 2 Samuel 7:9. We were looking in 2 Samuel, I think, yesterday, and I glanced across, and this is how sometimes I feel the Lord speaks to me. I like to colour in my Bible so that if I open my Bible and I really need something, I can just flick open and I see green and it's a promise. And so one of the things I flicked across to when we were reading, I think we were reading in 2 Samuel 6, flicked across 2 Samuel 7:9. The first part of that is, as I was with thee, and I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest. And that's really a testimony for all of us that God has been with us wherever we've been, whatever we've been doing. He has been with us. I know, Phyllis, in your testimony, you just felt like God was with you in all those dramatically bad times. He has been with us. And one of the earliest memories I have, which is really a bit terrible, isn't it? I remember running down from the kitchen down to my bedroom, down the hallway, going, nobody loves me. And isn't it terrible, the lies that Satan tells a little kid, and they believe them. And, and that affects you and affects your relationships with other people. And whatever event happened, I don't know, but it's sad that that's one of my earliest memories. But, I know God has been with me, often on a Sabbath afternoon. And I think God, as I said, God prepares us for our life work. As a girl, I used to never be bored, always something to do. Always, you find something to do. If, summer holidays seemed really long, but I always found crafts to do or books to read or whatever. And so I think that helps me now, because many times I think I have struggled a lot with, I'm missing out because I can't be there because I'm looking after Daniel or whatever. And the Lord goes, well, find something to do, find something to fill your time with, whatever. And I remember Sabbaths, like I've heard a few people who've been brought up Adventists say Sabbath was so terrible, couldn't wait for Saturday night. Well, I mean, that's where I go, oh well, read Christian books or as a teenager you start reading Christian novels, Christian romance novels. So that wasn't quite marvellous, but anyway, it was something to do. But I remember particularly when I was in year 11 and 12, the last 2 years of high school, and I really wanted to do, I didn't know what I wanted to do after school, so I just wanted to do as well as I could. I ditched music lessons and I ditched my ice figure skating that I was doing. I ditched everything and just focused on my studies. And I just remember Sabbath being such a blessing because I didn't have to study. And through university it was the same. And now with all the busy week I have with Daniel, Sabbath is such a blessing because I don't have to wash, I don't have to cook food, I don't have to do all the things, I don't have to do all those things I do during the week. And so I found Sabbath such a blessing. And when I was a little girl, we used to go bushwalking out in the nature. Mum would pack a picnic lunch, and I guess a bit like Reuben, we would go to church and then she'd pack a picnic lunch, we'd go out and Dad would be doing his photography. But I remember a couple of times having these moments where I'm just standing there waiting for Dad while he's photographing intricate details of flowers, just looking out into the bush and kind of sensing a relationship with God, and sensing that although he felt distant, I knew that he loved me, and I pray in my own little way. So yeah, there's all that. Anyway, get married and have kids, and then Adrian has a number of health challenges, and particularly 2000, we had to leave Sydney, come back to Queensland because it was Adrian's parents had a home that they'd built for their retirement, but they weren't retired yet. So we lived in it for a few years. It was a cheap way to live. And I remember there was one point where Adrian was really unwell, and I was secretly going, am I going to become a single mum? I just thought he was that unwell. He was so skinny, and he couldn't even sleep in the bed at night. He was so uncomfortable. We had to set up my massage table folded down so that he had a breathing hole, and he had to sleep on his stomach, and it was really a really bad zone, and a naturopath helped us get out of that. But there was one point where I just went back to our bedroom, and I just cried out to the Lord, and help us, get us out of this scenario. And that's one time where I felt the Lord really close, and I felt for a momentary period of time an arm around my shoulder, and the message was, I'm not going to take the burden away, but I'm going to walk with you through it. And so I guess that's been what we've had to do. We've had many challenges, but he's walked through it with us. So, and I think sometimes the Lord allows a really strong manifestation because you need it strong. You need to be able to anchor your faith onto an experience. So I know that was, and it wasn't long after that we had Daniel diagnosed with autism. He had been a pretty normal kid up to 18 months, and then he started to we all got a gastric bug, and it was a really bad one, and that's when Adrian's health collapsed. That's after that point Daniel started being reclusive, couldn't cope with, back then he could not cope with being in a building like this. The echoey noise of a high roof, it would freak him out, and shopping centres, and I just thought he was being naughty. But then I looked at him, I thought, he's just not coping. And we went to a model railway show, and I thought this will be really good for the boys, all these little model railways. There was lots of people, and it was in a shed. It was at the Royal Brisbane, you've probably been to it once, Royal Brisbane Showgrounds. And he wanted to be put down, he wanted to be picked up, he wanted to be put down, and then he just went limp on my shoulder. And I just said to Adrian, it's like he's having a nervous breakdown. He just could not cope with all the sensory input. And we went to a dietitian, thinking, because he'd started chewing all our books, and he'd carry around little Spirit of Prophecy books. He's like 2 years old. He'd carry around these Spirit of Prophecy books and chewing the edges of them. And he looked like he was studying the blurb on the back of books. He was a really interesting little kid. Anyway, we thought, his diet must be really depleted. So we went to a dietitian, and he put us on some adult strength supplements. And that really helped, but it wasn't the answer. And then you'd think, maybe he can't hear anymore, because he started lining up all his little toys, and you'd call his name and he just wouldn't hear, but he'd hear the keys and he'd run when we were going to the car and going, something's wrong here. He's not answering, he's not acknowledging us. And so we got his hearing checked, and that test didn't work because he was supposed to, like little kids, how they test their hearing, they have these, when a sound is made, that they're supposed to know if they react, that a puppet comes up in a little window. Well, he was so focused on something he was looking at that he didn't bother about the puppets, even if he heard it. So we had to do it under anaesthetic, a test, and it came out his hearing was perfect. But then they did the battery of tests and found out he was autistic. And then it's kind of like, oh, now what? And all they give you is, just put him in a special ed kindergarten. And going, well, that's not very good. And anyway, we had a friend at church say, she was working with some other kids, and they were, it was a type of therapy using psychologists and a type of learning. And so she set us up and we got some volunteers, and we sort of we've done a lot of therapy. I reckon we could have, in Australia, bought a house, bought a few houses here with how much we have spent on Daniel in monetary terms. So we've done heaps of therapy, and I remember a couple of years after that, Adrian was back in working as a minister, and we had him we were doing therapy, this therapy and that therapy and speech therapy, and we had him at the special ed developmental unit and an autistic centre, and I was running around. We had Michael in a school because I just didn't have the time to homeschool him. I was running around. I was just feeling like, oh, I just don't want to do another day like this. And that's when I went to a women's retreat, and I was just exhausted because both boys, you'd wake up in the night and all that. So it's, from the moment of having boys, it's been really tough. But through all that time, that early time, I recognised that we still had a lot of stuff happening in our home. Adrian, with Michael, they'd be playing, car racing games on the computer, and he'd still be watching some sport, and with the church, he might be playing some sport with the young people to connect with the young people. And there's just a lot of avenues, and we still had watching movies like even Luther and what's that other one? William Wilberforce, about the slave trade and all those sort of things. And we've dropped all those things off gradually as we've realised that there are avenues in. But, a lot of times, even back then, I was still dealing with a lot of self-pity, a lot of resentment, a lot of, poor me, my life's so hard compared to all these other people. You can't just, how about we go and do this as a family? Well, you can't do that because there'll be water there, or there's dogs there, or there's, all these sort of things that you can't do with Daniel. And so you gradually just get into this shell of just being at home and all that. Anyway, they were difficult times to do with Daniel's behaviour, because he would have to have something, and it was probably to do with the sensory input. He had to have something that he was fiddling with, and he would choose the smallest Lego blocks there are, the little tiny one little blocks, or the two little tiny things. And if he lost it, all hell broke loose. He would just scream the place down, and you had to find the exact piece. And it's like, so eventually we'd try and go, what's he got today? Can we find some other ones of those? But it was just these little things became such dramas. And it was just, and I remember, we got a bit of respite, and after a while it seemed like it was just me. I really needed the respite. Adrian could just be there, and he could look after, like the guy was looking after Daniel, and Adrian could be there. And so I'd go out and I'd come back and I'd go, oh, what happened? Because there might be something smashed, and Adrian had lost his temper because, we've got avenues in, and Daniel had lost something again, you couldn't find it and you can't fix it, so he's screaming, and it's just like these zones. It was just horrendous. And then when we came into the truth about the father and son, we had these zones where Daniel was just so messy from various things that make you messy. And I just remember, and we had to get supplements into him because the supplements were helping, and to mix them up, you had to mix them up, and I just syringe them in little by little. It'd take me half an hour to get, a syringe in, and it was just drama. And I just remember having times that I was standing on the trampoline trying to get this stuff in, going, you know what, I'm so sick of all this. Just, I've had enough. But there was more to come. 2010 was when we were living. We've moved around so much with trying to get places to get well. And 2010, when that parasite, Daniel was getting pretty difficult, and we didn't know what was wrong, and we were trying to do anti-parasite tablets and things. And anyway, we had a stool test done, which found a parasite, and the doctor said, oh, don't worry, lots of people have that parasite, don't worry about it. But anyway, that year, Adrian and Michael went for a break back to Queensland. We were living in New South Wales, and I had the first bit of violence come, and I was on my own, and Daniel would just wake up screaming, and this particular night, 3-4 in the morning, he'd just wake up screaming, and so I get up and I rush around, and he just starts fighting me, and so I quick grab Michael's pillow, protect myself, and the look in his eyes, it was just wild. And I was going, what do I do? I'm here, I'm on my own, he's getting bigger, he's about 10 or 11, he puts all his force into his violence. I'm on my own. Do you call the police because of your own child? What do you do? And we did find that water, he had 5 cups of water, and then it was like, oh, and it was as if he was back to his normal self. It's like, oh. So he goes back to bed, I go back to bed. And then the next day there was a smashed plate across the room. We're going, okay. And that was the beginning of heaps of violence for 2 years. And we just were living day to day, just hanging in there by our fingernails. And in the middle of that we moved because we thought, well, maybe it's because we were in a really rainy area, and I started noticing a little bit of mould in the house. Right, we've got to get out of this, we've got to go somewhere dry. We know where to go dry. That was Mildura. It's in kind of out desert region. It's this little city with hundreds of miles from everywhere. Well, it's quite a decent sized city, little oasis in the desert, so it's dry as ever. So we moved out there, and then we were organising the first camp meeting that we had, where Gary and Carolyn came over and a couple of others. And so we drove back over. We had Craig Jones that was here. He has been such a good friend. He helped me pack up, and some other friends helped me pack up, because Adrian's health was going down. We all just went out to Mildura, stay with some friends, and I had to come back and pack up the house. And I had 2 weeks, and then Adrian wasn't coping, so I had to fly back there, and I had to come back, and it was just, it was really, really hard. And like the night before I had to give up the house, I just stayed up all night, almost, just finalising everything, and then I had to pack everything into a 4-wheel drive, and then we had to drive down, and Craig was going to drive that and caravan, which is your trailers, out some other time anyway. And I almost missed my plane. It was just so stressful. And then we had the friends that we stayed with, they turned against us because of, I don't know, and there was a hole put in their wall because of Daniel's violence. And it was, and then we moved into, and then I was accused by that guy of turning something around, and it was just really, really hard. We just felt completely alone. And when we moved into the house that we got, I just remember, we didn't want to tell our parents really how bad this was. One day I picked up the phone for the respite service, and I just looked at you and cried. It was after hours, and I thought, I can't do this, they'll take my kid off me. I'll never get him back. So we just had to survive it without anyone really knowing how bad it was. Because it was like day and night. He'd be lashing out at us. Adrian got kicked in the head, in the chest. It was just, you wouldn't think of that from Daniel, but Gary saw a bit of it. He copped it in the jaw while he was trying to hold Daniel. But yeah, it was really hard. And Adrian at one point said, well, we can't live together. As in, I can't live with him. So he had to just go. He had to go and stay with a friend who again turned against him because of something, I can't remember. And then he went to a health clinic, and then Michael flew down to Melbourne to be at the health clinic. So I was again on my own with Daniel, and just had to survive it. And anyway, long story, we got through, but we just cried and cried out to the Lord, said, we know that you could fix this right now. With one word, you could fix him. But whatever. And that's when we really just thought, we don't want anything of the world. You know, if there's anything that's coming in, because at times, the look in Daniel's eyes, you could think he was demon possessed. And that's where it was really hard for Michael. And at that point, I guess, is when Michael's life took a different direction, because I remember him lying on the couch going, I wish there was no spiritual reality, because at times we were trying to say, Lord, you know, cast the evil spirits out or whatever, and for Michael it was just too much, because sometimes I think at that time when we were at Port Macquarie during that time, with that typing that Daniel could do, he said he wanted to be like Michael, because at that time Michael had committed his life to the Lord. He was wanting to learn computer programming to help. He was really good, and he now sort of denies that was that was just whatever. But and Daniel typed, "I want to be like Michael," and I thought, it's so sad that he was aware. I don't think he's as aware as he was then. I think maybe the parasite did a little bit more damage in the toxins in his brain, and he's actually less aware of how he's different to other people now than he was before. And it just was heartbreaking. And I think, and with Michael having at that point saying, I wish there was no spiritual reality. I wish there was no good, no evil, that all we had just to see. And we didn't realise how terrified Michael was at night. He would be in his bed going, any noise. I had no idea. I knew that he was having trouble with the dark. He wanted me to be up still with a light on before he went to sleep. I had no idea until many years later how bad that was for him, the spiritual reality. We don't know what's going on with our kids sometimes. And anyway, so I believe, so Michael's traumatised from that time, because Daniel would, I suppose he might, I don't know, but I suppose he might have thought Michael has stuff that I don't have and it's not fair. He was going through his own not fair. And so he would actually lash out at Michael even more than us. And so we had to sort of protect Michael a bit from it. So it was really tough. But what got me through that zone was I had, like I do, see my Bible, I colour it in. I had coloured in certain sections of Steps to Christ. I had a hardcover Steps to Christ, and I remember I was doing coffee editors at the time. I remember lying there with coffee and reading my Steps to Christ and just hanging on to chunks of that, the portions that were just beautiful. And at Port Macquarie, I must have left it in a drawer or somewhere. I've lost it from there. And I just hope someone's in the kingdom because of that book. And I really grieve that I haven't got that book with those special coloured in. I've never had the time to go back and colour one in again. But that's what got me through that. And other promises, like there's so many beautiful promises, like trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land. Verily thou shalt be fed. All that sort of. I've highlighted a number of beautiful passages which trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not to thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall direct thy paths. That's kind of what has got us through is promises in the spirit of prophecy, promises in the Bible in those really hard times. And I guess, many of you, your childhoods have been really, really horrendous in a similar way, but this is like you've lived with violence. I've lived with violence in a different way. I've lived with domestic violence in a different way, like with our son, and it's scary, as many of you would know from your own experiences. The other thing, and I shared with you, and I'll read it. The other thing that really got me through those times was that. And I've got to read it rather than just allude to it like I did last time. The very last chapter of the 9th volume of the Testimonies is a chapter called The Reward of the Faithful. And there's 2 passages that I just clung on to. There are homes for the pilgrims of earth. There are robes for the righteous, the crowns with crowns of glory and palms of victory. All that has perplexed us in the providences of God will in the world to come be made plain. The things hard to be understood will then find explanation. The mysteries of grace will unfold before us. Where our finite minds discovered only confusion and broken promises, we shall see the most perfect and beautiful harmony. We shall know that infinite love ordered the experiences that seemed most trying. As we realise the tender care of him who makes all things work together for our good, we shall rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. If you're in the thick of it, that's hard to handle, isn't it? If you think about it, unless you know that there's a loving God. We shall know that infinite love ordered the experiences that seemed most trying. It's pretty hard. Like when you think about the depths of your most challenging experiences, that He has ordered those, and we will say we would not have wanted to be led another way. There's some other quote that says exactly that. There's another section, a few paragraphs down. It will not be long till we shall see him in whom our hopes of eternal life are centred, and in his presence all the trials and sufferings of this life will be as nothingness. And it says, cast not away therefore your confidence, which has great recompense of reward, for ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of God ye might receive the promise. For yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. Look up, and let your faith continually increase. Let this faith guide you along the narrow path. And those I particularly remember. I don't know how I found them. I think I might have been looking for that quote, which isn't exactly that one, but it says that we will look back and we would not have wanted to be led any other way. And I think I was looking for that, but I found... And they... Okay, that must be the quote. That's in Desire of Ages. Yeah, I think I might have been looking for that quote, and I found that instead at the time. And there were times that's all I could cling on to, was that I don't understand now, but like Job, you say, although he slay me, I will trust in him. Like, they were, yeah. So that was really scary. Anyway, we found a doctor who said, I think we need to think about the parasite. So we got the parasite treated, and after the 10 days of this triple antibiotic, the violence was gone. But then he was sort of suffering a post-traumatic zone himself, where he was freaked out because I said, what's the matter? And he was, I'm scared it'll come back again. Because what he experienced, he said to me, it was a plopping in his head. And I think this is where you might have seen him peering into Adrian's ear. He has this behaviour where he's peering into Adrian's ear when he's a bit stressed. And I think it must have been like a thumping headache he had all the time. So for 2 years, he's got a migraine thumping headache. We're not fixing it. He can't tell us what he's going through. So that's probably why he got violent, because he's lashing out. Or he can't take it. So there's explanations for his behaviour. But anyway, so that got treated. Then we had to put him onto I don't remember, a Zoloft, I think it was, for a while, because he was just anxious. And so we got over that. We then thought, I think we'll take a break from homeschooling and we'll put him in a school. So we did the necessary things to get him deemed as intellectually impaired, which I didn't want to do earlier, to put him in a special school, so that we got him in the special schools. And then I think, why didn't I do this at the beginning? These schools are great. And he loved it. He loved school. So he then finished from 12 till 17. He was in special schools then, and they were just wonderful. And then I got my break, because it was like, for 6 hours he's in school every day. I'm going, I can do something for me. So that was really good. But during that time, we really cleaned house, like Adrian was talking about last night. We thoroughly cleaned house. Got rid of any documentary that was on beautiful nature, if it ever mentioned evolution and anything. I don't know that you really have to be that strict, but we weren't that strict because we were desperate to get rid of whatever was going on. Now, Fast Track, he's got a lot better, he's got older, but come 2014, Adrian was going on this trip overseas, and because of Daniel wets the bed every night, so I need a washing machine, and thankfully I love the washing machine and dryer up at house because it works brilliantly. And so I can't travel with Adrian. I don't want to take Daniel out of his school. He's loving school. It's stability for him. So I can't travel with Adrian. And Adrian had so many people that he had contacts with, numerous countries in Europe and America. So I said, well, there's no point going there and then coming back and going there and then coming back with all the jet lag you'd experience. You may as well just go and do it all, and we'll cope. We'll be okay. We were living near the beach, so it was nice. While Daniel was at school, I could go walk on the beach and have a bit of I would walk on the beach and think, I'm on holidays for an hour. And so that was my little zone. And I tried, for that 7 months, I tried to do a number of things. Like I thought, well, maybe I should connect with some friends and go and have lunch with them and things like that. And then I found that I was having to stay up too late doing all the things I had to do as well. So I thought, forget that, just stay at home, do whatever. But, we've heard things from rumours around that, oh, they must have marriage problems because, you know, he's gone away for such a long time, and how could you have a marriage, or, you know, if you're apart? And it's kind of like, you've got no idea. You know, I would be there if I could, but, you know, I would be many times when Daniel was young, I'd be pacing out in the car park because of Daniel, or Adrian had come to go to some meetings and I couldn't because I know Daniel would be noisy, and if they're recording it, you know, you know, he's really good now. We have to keep telling him to be quiet a lot, but you know, but we're okay. We're on the same page. We talk. There's the Skype. There's all that. There's no marriage problems for him to be away, and it's just because of Daniel's needs. I really couldn't be there. That's what it's always been. But anyway, during that 2014, there was a week. Daniel was doing some disgusting behaviours, and I didn't know what to do about it. In his bedroom, and I'll let your imagination work out what that might be. But I didn't know what to do about it. I asked the State Disability Services, I said, I need some behavioural help. I need some help to work out what to do about this. I'm sick of it. And so well, you know, they couldn't offer me any help, and I was talking to one of Adrian's aunties, and she works with in the kind of aged care area, and she said, look, it's like the aged care people, you've just got to think about rewards and punishments and things like that. Treat him like a 3-year-old, even though he's, you know, what was he, 16? And I'm thinking, okay, all right. So you've got to think up a really good punishment for doing these things that I don't want him to do. And the punishment was his computer. He has a computer, it's not connected to the internet, but it's got lots of videos and music and pictures, our family pictures, all our family videos are on there, and certain videos that he likes. So I decided, okay, I got him lots of sensory things to replace what he was playing with, that I didn't want him to play with. Therapy, and you can imagine what that might be like, similar thing, bodily excretion. So I got the rewards. I wrote him out a thing called a social story, which in the autism world is a special way you write a story. You write it from, like, as if, for instance, you say, many people do this. This is okay. I will try to do that. That will be very clever. You know, that's the sort of mode. There's a certain sequence to it, and they've always worked for me. So I wrote this social story for him, and the punishment was the computer, and I thought, here we go. So I was reading the story, and what he was doing was now only allowed in the bathroom and not in his room, on punishment of removing his computer. So we went for it, and he did what he did, and I said, okay, you know what I've said, we remove the computer. I had no idea what was coming because he got violent again. And I go, righto, well, I don't think Adrian would let Daniel hit and kick his mother, so I think I'm going to need Michael's help. So, Michael, I need your help with this. So he had to get involved and be the, you know, but then that brought complications because Michael has a secret little thing like, oh, now I can get him, you know, brother. And it's kind of like, and then I'm going, no, don't hit him in the head. Don't punch him in the stomach. And then I get a chair and I protect myself. Anyway, so it was on again, but he wore out pretty quick. So of the half an hour that I was going to remove the computer, he wore out after 15 minutes, and then we're all going, oh, for the next 15 minutes. Okay, you can have your computer back. Anyway, 4 times in that 1 week that happened. And then we won the battle, and the things were only done in the bathroom. I didn't say in the toilet, but oh well, I only said the bathroom. So the bathroom floor can be easily cleaned up instead of the bedroom floor. So we won the battle. Anyway, 2 months later, and after that, it was such a stressful week. After that, we all got the flu, the proper flu. We were just so sick. I was sick for 8 weeks anyway. Towards the end of that 8 weeks, he had something happen in the bedroom again. I'm going, Michael, look at this. Are you ready? Here we go. So we removed the computer, and it was the full half hour, the whole half hour of violence. And at the end of that, Michael thought he'd broken some fingers and whatever. They were just, yeah, he was okay. But it was really hard. And technically, you probably shouldn't give back until he stops and calms down. But I thought, no, just the half an hour. But anyway, it's never happened again. So we won the battle. But I just thought if I didn't do that, we would lose all the ground that we had gained, all the ground that we'd gained before. So that was that, and we haven't had it again until the end of school last year. We were getting ready to move house again. School was coming to an end. He loved school. We had his school formal, which he looks so smashing in a suit. It was amazing. But he was so hyped up, like he'd be eating the food and he'd be running around, and he never really calmed down. And then we had, a couple of days later, we had their awards ceremony at school where some kids were just being taken home, some of the final year kids, and we weren't playing because I thought we've got 3 more days of he can be at school and we can have a break. We're packing to move, and something happened. Like, he was supposed to follow a teacher back to his classroom, and this other kid was the parents were taking away, and he got confused, and I think he was getting this. I think it's a case of the abyss of, he got the impression school was finishing, this was ending, but he couldn't see anything over that abyss. And he just got violent again at school. We went out to the car park and they said, can you come back? And there's this wild look in his eyes. This is just last November. And he's bigger now, and he's just laying into Adrian, and just, anyway, we calmed him down. But they tried to calm him. Adrian got him calmed down a bit. They tried to calm him down by putting a cartoon on, which just fired him up again. So we said, look, we won't go away. We'll just go up to the shopping centre. We get to the shopping centre, get out of the car. Can you come back? So anyway, and they've evacuated the area. And anyway, we have to take him home. And then that was it for school. What a horrible way to finish his school career. So that was that. And anyway, we took him straight to the beach. And thankfully I'd had some spare swimmers for him and Adrian in the car, and they went to the beach, got him into the seawater with all the minerals, and we did that for 3 days. We just kept bringing him back down to the beach, but that night after he'd been to the beach, and he's in the toilet, and he's just laying out again, and I just realised, and Michael said to me, I think it's almost like you've got a post-traumatic stress disorder, because as soon as he goes into that mode, I just go, I don't want to be back there. I don't want to be back in Mildura where all that violence was. I can't take this. And because he's big, I can't deal with it. And so I've got this fear of, and it happened, like, there was that, and then a couple of weeks before Passover, something was happening in his system, and it happened again. And Adrian goes into this 10, is it this, or is it this? No. Okay. But that's not, is that working? It's good? Yeah. No. Anyway, I'll keep talking. Adrian's got it sort of down pat now, where he just has to contain him and hold him, and he's bigger now, so he can cope with it. And then it just passes. And obviously in this situation, a few weeks before Passover this year, it was something in his system. It was the way his body was just detoxing something. And so a lot of these times, like when Adrian went to New Zealand earlier this year for a weekend, and we had a carer who was taking him on the Sunday, just on the train, on the boats, just for a day out, so I could have a break, because I thought that'd be good. And she just rang back and says, he's screaming, and I'm going, and I'm supposed to be having a break. And anyway, what had happened, he's such a litmus test also for spiritual things, because some people had hopped onto the train who were obviously drunk. They had some little kids with them, and the father, or the male, started laying into this little kid, and she said it wasn't just smacking, it was abuse. And Daniel just couldn't, he was just glued to it, and he couldn't cope with it. But as soon as they got off, like, I was talking to her, say, well, get him away from those people, give him some water, give him whatever. And anyway, as soon as they got off the train, he was back to his normal self. But situations like that, I just felt really depressed again, because, and this is what I'm even on Sabbath, he was starting to, when that music got stopped halfway through a song. He loves your music, you know, the scripture songs. And between Sabbath school and church, because it was time to start church, they just stopped it where it was, and it was halfway through a song. And he couldn't cope. And I could see him. He started hitting his leg, and I'm going, any minute now, we're going to blow up, and this could be all on. And that's my current battle at the moment, is just trusting the Lord that he's not going to put me in a situation where I'm not going to be able to cope, because I couldn't cope with him. If he's violent, I can't cope with him. He's too strong. He's a male. He's bigger than me. And I guess that's where I just get depressed that, you know, everything we're doing, supplement-wise or therapy-wise, we're just trying to keep the lid on this violence now. And so coming here, I wanted to get the lymphatic treatment because it would help to detox whatever's, because I think his toxicity is just up to here. And so any little deviation, and that's why I have to be so strict with the diet, because any deviation, you can see the frustration levels coming, and then he flips. And that's, so I'm a work in progress, because obviously I've got lessons to learn in trusting the Lord is not going to put me in a position where it's too hard. We've had so many holes in walls that we've had to fix in houses when we leave. We've had things broken, and you go, oh well, whatever. But so yeah, that's, I guess we're all a work in progress, and that's sort of like some of the things that we deal with. But anyway, that's all that issue. But then the other issue is just the tiredness level and the missing out on meetings and things like Passover. Our first Passover camp we had in Australia, 2016. Adrian was there, yes. He's not been there for Tabernacles. I was getting to bed because we were doing certain health routines. That meant that once we got back from fellowshipping after the evening meeting, I knew that it was 2 hours before I could hop into bed because of what we had to do after when we got back to the house. And so, you know, we might get back at 10. So every night I'm getting to bed at 11:30 or midnight. And Daniel was in this mode of waking up really early. And so I just wasn't getting enough sleep, and I was complaining to the Lord. And this is another zone where he, like earlier, where I felt that arm around me. I was sitting, and he said to me, and it was more an audible voice this time. He said, "You speak of lack, but my children," I said, you speak of lack, but my children don't lack any good thing. And that's in, where is that? Oh, Psalm 34, 10. It's not exactly like that, but the words are there. The actual word lack is there. It says, "The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing." And then also in there, you know, the Lord, I mean, these are some of the other promises I've clung to at times too. Like verse 19, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all." But particularly, he pointed me to that text in my mind, that my children don't lack for any good thing. And so it was a rebuke. You know how the ministration of death is a rebuke, but it is also healing. Like that text, I kill and I make alive, I wound but I heal. And I took it as a rebuke, but the gentleness of the way that he spoke that to me, it arrested my attention in that, wow, you're not angry at me. You're not saying, "Now come on, get with the program. You should know better than this, you know, stop complaining." It wasn't like that at all. It was just so gentle and so loving. And it wasn't until this year Passover, being in an exact same situation, still getting to bed late, but this time Daniel is sleeping a little bit longer, which is good in the mornings. But I wasn't really getting to bed any earlier. I was still missing meetings to get some food cooked for Daniel here and there. And I thought, I dare not complain because of last year, but because we'd come into the knowledge of the character of God this year, then I realised the significance of not what he said, but how he said that to me. Just the gentle, it was a rebuke, but it was gentle and loving. And it was as if this wonderful Father is, "Come on, you know, you're speaking of lack, but I'm not wanting you to lack any good thing. And it's just, yeah, that was really significant to me. And I think sometimes, now that I've had a few more little zones this year where I'm finding myself getting, my anxiety level is getting really high with Daniel, whether he's going to blow again and all that. I think sometimes the Lord uses a really strong way of speaking to you, or an actual audible voice, or feeling a touch, because you need it to hang on to really carry you through other times. And that's been really special. So I can't say that I am out of the woods on my anxiety about Daniel's behaviour. And I guess on Sabbath too, I was thinking, you know, this lymphatic thing, it's not working because he's got so freaked out about it, and he got sweaty, and we didn't know that when you get water on those probes, it gives you a little electric shock, a ping, and so that was happening and we didn't realise. So he's getting freaked out more about the treatment, and this was what I was hoping. We would have a lot of this treatment here while we're here, and he would come back so much healthier and be so detoxed that we might even have him talking when we get home. Or, you know, that was kind of in my mind. I was thinking, what's going to happen while we're here? And on Sabbath, Adrian said, oh, maybe we're just not going to get anywhere with this with this treatment while we're here. And that was, and then knowing he's sort of building again, and I'm going, okay, I've got a lot to learn still. So we're all works in progress. So, but you know, what's got me through, I guess, to wrap it up, I guess what's got me through a lot of what we've been through with Daniel. Well, firstly, the Lord has given us a really good marriage. We don't have any conflicts, and we've needed that, because it was interesting. When Daniel was little, we got approached to be part of the Australian 60 Minutes program, because there was a lady who had she had killed her 10-year-old autistic son, planning to do herself in as well, but that didn't work. So then the court system was dealing with, and so it was in the media as to, you know, how they were not going to put her in jail and say she wasn't mentally fit to be charged. And the whole 60-minute story was about that. I had no idea that that's what the focus was, but we were asked to be shown having an interview with a psychologist that this mother had an interview with. And so the 60 Minutes team picked us up, took us up to his place, had the interview, did a full interview with us as parents about how we're dealing with Daniel, and showed us being interviewed by the psychologist and having an appointment with him. Came back home, wanted to film Daniel screaming, which was easy to produce because we had a little dog and he was freaked out about the little dog. So I just had to leave him on the trampoline with the dog around, and he'd, ah! So anyway, when we come to watch the 60 Minutes program on TV, this program starts with Daniel going, ah! I'm going, oh, that's not very nice. That's what they wanted our boy for. Anyway, they showed a few things of him and us having our session with the psychologist, but didn't show a skerrick of our interview. And I'm going, that's interesting. But then they showed some other little family scenarios. See, what they were trying to portray was that the autism was splitting families up. But in our interview, we were saying, well, we just had to pull together on this and work together to, you know. Oh, well, they weren't telling them what they want to hear. So they didn't show any of ours. So I'm really thankful to the Lord that I guess he's, through everything that he has brought me through in life, he's enabled us to cope. He's enabled us to get through what we get through. He's enabled us, especially having a strong marriage, having both our parents, when we have no issues with our parents liking the respective partner. And my parents were really loved Adrian, and his parents actually, before even Adrian started going out with me. Have you noticed Lorelle? so you know, it was the Lord's given us a stability of family structure to cope with things, which I know a lot of other people don't have that. But I guess we've needed that amount of stability to cope with what we've been coping with Adrian's ministry and the flack that gets, and I guess my personality mix with his. stepped right into the headship submission, so we're able to function in the right way, and I'm fully supportive of his ministry because I've always respected him, and the fact that Adrian's able to just step in, and if I leave because I need a break for 9-10 days, I earlier this year. We went down and stayed with my mum, and then I stayed another 9 days just with my mum, and Adrian just took the boys back, and he looked after Daniel, and things might not get done as tidily and neatly as I would, but they survive, and I just tidy things up a little bit when I get back, and then I can have a complete break. And I really appreciate how I have a husband that can do that for Daniel and loves Daniel and has a really good relationship. So much to be thankful for at the way he's brought us through, and I'm really, really thankful for all the Bible promises. There's so many of them that just carry me, and when I'm feeling down, or even when I don't have much time to read, I said, "Oh Lord, what would you like to tell me?" And there was another one, it was actually on Sabbath, when I was struggling in my mind about how Daniel was coping on Sabbath. We were in Exodus somewhere, and I just looked across, and there was another one, and he said, it's Exodus 33:14. I think Adrian was reading Exodus 34, or one of you guys were, about, when Moses is shown the glory of the Lord. And I looked across to Exodus 33:14 because I had it coloured in green. It says, "And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest." And that was a direct word to me right when I was struggling with, is Daniel going to blow, and that's why I thought the best thing to do was we just whisked him down. We have lunch down there. We don't stay for the potluck. But this is, I guess, the way. I don't get a lot of time to do lots of Bible study. I listen to what I can. I read what I can. I edit some of Adrian's booklets when he's doing them. But sometimes I might just get a text like that in one day, and that carries me. And that's a nugget that I guess I'm on it must be really high in calories, my my spiritual diet, so that what I eat will carry me for the whole day. It gives me enough energy for the day. So yeah, I guess my testimony is through everything, the promises and his actual special messages to me, to us, have carried me, and promises in Spirit of Prophecy and in the Bible really carry me, and yeah. So I recommend, as Ellen White said, I recommend this book. And I recommend colouring in promises with your favourite colour, because then when you are going through a tough time, you can just flick your Bible and go, "Oh, thank you, Lord, that's really nice." So thank you. So shall we say a prayer? Our loving Father in heaven, I thank you so much for your providences, and at times we can only believe by faith what you have said, that we would not want to be led any other way, and that in eternity we would see that your loving providence ordered every really tough time. And sometimes we can look back and we can see things like that in our lives, earlier lives, but sometimes when we're in the thick of it, we can just trust that this is true, and we will one day understand. If we never understand on this earth, we will understand in the kingdom to come. And we thank you so much for your love, for the fact that you are a loving Father that is gentle and kind. We were talking about you. So with us, and that gives us what we need and gets us through the tough times, whether it be through promises, whether it be through the generosity and the help of friends. But we thank you for every good gift you've given us, and we pray that you would be with us and help us to trust you more and have faith when we are struggling. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, that was good timing. Hey, Daniel. We were talking about you. So